Hey, we're back with another episode of RevivalCast, and we've got Cheshire and Sailkite with us today, and we're going to talk about we're going to start off talking about the new blog, which was about studying. But before we do that, was there anything interesting happening in IRC this week that you guys wanted to mention?
Cheshire's finally back in IRC, which is great, because just you've been unable to get IRC, as I understand, for like a number of months now. So it's really cool to have you back. Lots of fun discussions so far. But otherwise, I don't think there was anything super big.
Fun discussions, but nothing that should be shared with anybody who's not in IRC.
Nothing that's not publicly available.
Okay.
Nothing that's not already out there in some form or another.
Okay. So. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a new IRC client so I can pop back in. Although I was rarely in there before, but the last time I tried to get in, it was telling me that my trial version of MIRC isn't no longer valid. So I'm gonna have to do something there. Anything that you saw in the forums that was super interesting, Cheshire?
In the forums lately?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was what's his name? Randomize, doing not only the decryption journal, but also the Planar City project that he wants to start up on the Goratul server.
Yeah.
Those were pretty neat reads. The code thing. It's something with numbers. I have trouble staring at numbers anymore.
Yeah, we have a cipher code going on, and the cipher is all numbers instead of letters.
I can give you guys the answer if you want.
But
I just don't know if I'm allowed.
Well, we definitely don't want to do it on air, so
maybe after. So
yeah.
Cheshire actually has a pretty good idea already. Just one step too far.
Yeah, well, we should dive into the blog, which was on studying, which seems to me to be more of an ability than a skill. I'm not sure that counts as a skill. It seems like everybody will be able to study. Is that the impression the two of you got?
It's the impression I'm getting. It's more of just an ability that all skills have. Just when you use the study ability, it takes what skills you have, and these are the things you can study.
Yeah,
that's what I figure it is.
Yeah, and it seems like you can either target something specific to study, and it will focus on that one thing and open a mini game, or you can have it not targeted, and then that will actually target a variety of things that you'll be able to see that you'll be able to study, and then you can focus in on that from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then that goes into training too, because you can use that to study what somebody else is doing, and that will teach you a little bit of that particular skill, and you can learn more about that. And then if you want to focus in on that, you'll have the ability to focus in on that, which seems kind of cool too.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, study is, kind of just like a thing you activate, and then I guess you activate it again if you want to study like, a chunk of ore or something, right? But then for the training skill or ability, I'm gonna say ability until Snipe and Omba chime in and explain why it's a skill according to the nomenclature. but the training ability seems to be more like, I guess, like a toggled aura, I guess. No, I don't know if it is an aura per se, or like you actually have to like target someone or something.
I think it was said that you do have to select somebody and select to train with them, and they have to accept to train with you, and it's like a mini game from there.
Right, but you can absorb other people's information by watching them and not just having to like read a book, and or do something like that. You can have a more immediate transfer of their character's knowledge about a particular craft or skill or combat stance or what have you, by mutually engaging in that ability or that mechanic, I suppose, which is cool, I think.
Yeah, so one of the things that I thought was fascinating about what was written in the blog, it was saying that Revival is a game of imperfect knowledge, and they want the player characters to have different pieces of information. And the dev blog was saying that there's complaints about flat progression. I think that goes more towards vertical progression to me. But boring quests and all of that. But when I was reading through, I wasn't even thinking so much about progression as much as I hear complaints about the lack of socialization. People don't socialize in games anymore, and a lot of times what I hear is we should be forced to group. We should be forced to interact with other people, and I hate the idea of being forced. I don't want to have to be forced to do anything. I want to be encouraged and want to socialize. And I think this feels like one of the ways to do that. That's a little bit more, under the radar. It's not so overt as some of the ways they've tried to force us to synchronize with other players for profession skills. Knowledge, it seems just like, maybe this person has a little bit of information or can teach me something, which is a little better than I have to wait for this person so he can use his skill, then I can use my skill. And if we don't do this, then we can't create whatever item we're trying to create.
Yeah, though I think also, if I understand correctly, we can train with NPCs and not necessarily with other players. So if someone is perhaps averse to grouping in that sense or learning from a player, depending on what they're trying to learn and how far they're willing to go to find an NPC who can teach it to them, there should be some recourse that will enable someone to basically stay solo and get at least a passable education in something without feeling like they absolutely have to interface with other players, but on a case-by-case basis, of course.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's generally more of an idea of I don't want to. It's not so much that I want to do everything solo, and I don't want to have to depend on other players because the other players might not be there. So I don't want to have to be sitting around waiting, saying, Sale isn't on. When is he going to be on? He's like, on vacation this week. I don't want to wait for him to come back. I'd like to still be able to play, or especially for me, because sometimes when I was doing localizations, I'd be on the European
server, yeah.
Well, on that time frame, so I'm up playing it after midnight when I used to be playing, on U.S. time, and so the people that I used to play with weren't on when I was playing anymore. I just want to be able to still play when I have time to play. And I'm hoping this will be a way to kind of encourage all of that, but so that it's not just forcing us to have to wait for other players. Are there skills, of the skills that we know so far, because we can only kind of max 3 skills or be really working towards these 3 main skills at a time. Are there skills that you are anticipating wanting to rely on other players for?
Well, developing combat skills, you got to train against some kind of, person eventually. I mean, starting off, you can hit a dummy for a while, but that you can only learn so much from that.
Mm-hmm. So, with the skills list, do you have 3 skills in mind right now that you think
skills?
You
Not off the top of my head. Let me see. Yeah, nothing off the top of my head right now that I can think of. I mean, what skills we got? We got things like astrology, archaeology, mining. Yeah, I mean, there's ritual magic skills. That's supposed to be a group thing right there. There's the sex skill, the infamous sex skill.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, unless they decide to throw in masturbation, I think you gotta have to have another person, even if it is just a NPC or whatever with you.
Designed to foster a loving community.
There you go.
Let's see. Got to come up with a third one, huh?
Yeah, just when I think of not even just so much to do in a group, but my main character is not planning to have astrology, but I'm hoping that I will have friends who are interested in astrology, so I can anticipate myself going over to a friend's house and hoping that they can read my cards on a certain day, or if I have a party, that might be one of the activities that they do for me, or do for the party, is and hopefully that way we'll foster socializing, because we won't all have the same skills.
Miner and a blacksmith. There's another symbiotic relationship there.
Yep, or alchemists who need people to go gather rare things from other places, rare reagents and such, for sure. And I think that's intended as well, like that sort of, I guess, Star Wars Galaxy-esque, I think was the prime example of this, if I remember correctly. Sort of interdependence, where there were really dedicated crafters, right? And some people...
Well, or maybe even if you have somebody who's like got whitesmithing, blacksmithing, and is a jeweler, they might want an archaeologist to go out and actually, gather the artifacts for them and then bring them back, or go out and do harvesting for them, or whatever their businesses are.
Definitely, since Snipe recently, I believe, said at best you can probably maximize three skills, maybe 4 if you're super dedicated.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're a whitesmith, a blacksmith, and a jeweler, you're going to need somebody else to go get the other materials for you.
Omqua says in chat that an old alchemist maybe isn't skilled or hale enough to get to the top of Rare Ingredient Mountain. That's the other aspect. That's kind of interesting to think about how age is going to fall into play with being super skilled too. That's going to give you maybe more wisdom or higher perception or higher intelligence, something like that. And you might not be, as he's saying, as hardy and hale to go out and actually adventure and fight stuff.
And not even just age, just how physically active your character is, and what they eat even plays into that a little bit too, from what I've read. So,
I don't know, blacksmithing's hard work. I don't know, if you're a blacksmith alchemist, I think you might be able to make it. But just a pure alchemist, probably not.
Maybe. You'll definitely have some arm strength there going hammering.
Yeah, definitely.
But, you're kind of skipping leg day every day if you're just a blacksmith.
Maybe they can come up with a way to use your legs to blacksmith if your arms get torn off or turned into tendrils.
Right, you have like a foot bellows or something, right, to stoke the forge, and then you're just pumping the bellows all day so you can keep
like
turning up
that one movie with the girl with like the machine gun leg. Yeah, I'm sure you hammer there and just sit down.
Right?
Yeah, Tarantino. Yeah,
Grindhouse or whatever.
Something like that. I don't know. Something ridiculous.
I pull out my bow leg.
Crossbow, shoot somebody underneath the table with my crossbow leg. Bam. Little Han Solo right there.
Oh man.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just reading through the blog real quickly on some of the nuances of training. I mean, the way they described it, it says training is used to pick up things about a skill that you don't already know from someone who does, and then study is how you apply what you've already learned to the discovery of new items and research.
Hmm.
Okay, so I suppose you would use study, like if you're trying to make, like a antidote or something for some poison, I guess, to continue with the alchemy example, and then you don't have the necessary keter salts or whatever, right? Then you're like, I'll just throw in crystal meth or something; it'll work just fine.
Hey.
And then I guess that would be an example of study, or trying to make non-Euclidean fries, as the chat may be pursuing in the possible realm of potatomancy.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Potatomancy.
But yeah,
It's
okay.
kind of a related school to my lesbomancy in the
Right.
forums there.
Potatoes, etc. Brave new world of scientific endeavor.
Yeah, and so it's saying if you have no specific target, it highlights the things around you that you can learn more about based on your skills. Which again, yeah, that seems to, if it's based on your skills, that seems to separate that from skill. It's more of an ability than a skill, I think. Selecting any one of the highlighted objects will start the study minigame for that type of object. Yeah, at some point. And I guess that could happen before the end of the year. Maybe it'll be happening at the beginning of next year. We'll be ready to play around with some of the mini games.
So optimistic. So optimistic.
The details of mini games is kind
Well, we know that we'll be able to throw dice by then, no matter what.
Oh yeah.
We'll be able to throw dice, which is a very important mini game for all of us. So.
What kind of dice? We just talking like D6s here, or are we talking, D20s and D12s?
I think
we're talking
D20s and D12s because they want us to be able to do
play D&D.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there might be like a D, 3.6 in there somewhere. But I anticipate, complex dice, right? It has like 8 imaginary sides or something to go with its regular 17 physical sides, and you look at it and it refracts like the number on the wall or something. Fun stuff. A D6000, etc. Easy peasy.
Use like D4s as caltrops.
They are caltrops, dude. Like seriously, if you ever need to run away from people trying to beat you up for being an awesome nerd, you take out your dice, you say "Thank you, lucky dice," and you just dump them, right? And they will stub their toes on like the D6s and get puncture wounds from the D4s. It's a true thing, man. You can even take a D2, a good old coin, and just flick it back there. They'll hit someone in the eye and they'll stop. It's true.
I have hit somebody in the eye with a quarter before. It was
You monster.
it was unpleasant. He was my superior in the Navy too. It was an interesting experience there. Yeah. Ooh, war flashbacks.
At least you have a smile on your face while you're saying it, so it's super traumatic. Yeah, so it was saying, so there's the passive training that you could do while you're watching someone, but it says you can send the request, a training request to a person, and that goes into more detail because then with that the teacher goes first and starts executing whatever the technique is that's supposed to be taught, shows the trainee how it's done, and then the trainee attempts to do that technique themselves. So it's kind of a mini game that opens up between the trainer and the trainee as you're trying to learn a new technique.
For the just watching people thing, I wonder how close you actually have to be for that. I mean, could I be at a Coliseum match, sitting up in the stands, watching the fighters down there and studying their techniques from that far away? Or would I have to be like right up there, right up in their face?
What you doing? Looking over your shoulder. What you making there?
Hey, what you doing there? Hey.
I would imagine you have to be relatively close. I don't think you could do it from the distance of like bleachers. I would bet that there's some kind of window, and I would also think that might also be determined by perception.
Yeah, I'm thinking there might be either attributes or some form of stats related to that. At least in some fashion, like it might not be a huge scalar, but like maybe just a small modifier to how far away or how close you need to be able to pick something up, like a small detail. Because it's also like, I don't know if it'll go this far, but like if you're making, if you're watching someone say chop wood, right? And I don't strictly know if this would be something you'd ever, study for, right? But if you're watching someone chop wood at a decent distance, right, you can generally tell why they're, what they're doing, and then think about why they're using the stance that they're using, right? Like they're not just gonna kind of like pitifully noodle the axe, at the log and hope it splits somewhere. They're gonna stance and then try to get a lot of gravity force into there and cleave through the log. And you can tell that usually at a distance, just because someone will be, standing with their arms apart and trying to start with the at the head of the axe and then sliding, whatever. But it's been a while since I've cut wood, but it's something like that. It's something like that.
Go ahead, Josh.
Maybe you could learn a little bit more the closer you are, kind of thing. Like you pick up on the finer details a bit. Farther away, the more details are lost to you. A bit of a slower, sloppier process that way. So maybe you could still learn a thing or two from, up in the Coliseum nosebleed section there, but nowhere near as much as the person who is right there on the front row, maybe. Something like that. Just a thought.
We'll see. We had on Theory Forge Friday, we were talking about personalities, and I was saying that I usually use the stats and attributes of my characters to form their personality. And as I was listening to you guys, I was thinking I'm gonna have to have one of my alts have a low perception, because I can just imagine having to teach this person over and over again. Like, I already taught you that. How many times do we have to go through the minigame before you finally pick it up? I've done this 10 times already. You should have it by now. I would imagine their characters with low perception or low intelligence might have to be trained more often on a particular technique than ones with high perception or intelligence, or could be the same thing with reflexes or something like that too. Your character just might need more time to train with a person because their stats aren't high enough.
You know what they say, Diggs? You can't teach a salty dog sweet tricks. You can't teach a salty dog sweet tricks. Yeah, I don't know. I think the personality thing is interesting because a lot of times, like at least in practice, like the real world, people have personalities that are quite distinct from the jobs they end up having to work. So, at least in my opinion, right? Like I've done minor work at, for instance, like retail stores and stuff. And it's very much outside of my my forte, but like it was necessary for the purpose of getting income and whatever. So while I don't disagree that it's fun to make characters, personalities and such, and strong suits off of their stats, I think there's just a small certain degree of realism that can come out of not necessarily correlating those. But I agree, it's super fun, right? Like you roll like, my character has 19 dexterity. and then you just go crazy and have him be a knife juggler that just does whatever he wants all over the place. But yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean that's normally an aspect of my min-maxing. So I usually specifically take skills that I'm planning to, or if I'm gonna have skills that I want, I'm gonna max the stat that's gonna help them be good at that. But that also is likely gonna mean that I'm gonna be min at something, and that character is gonna have issues based on the min stuff. But that stuff will just happen in any case, because literally when I roll, that min stuff is going to play a factor. My character literally isn't as good at some stuff. And we don't have a lot of that playing into factors in our MMORPG experiences, I think.
It's just gear score, right? It's dexterity don't mean anything. Yeah.
But we generally aren't trying things. We're generally going for the most efficient. We aren't generally trying anything that we're minned in.
Well, short of the theory crafted simulated rotations that the cream of the crop with math and games do over in their secret conclaves of science, witchcraft. But hey, they provide a valuable service to the raiders who need to know how to get that max deeps. So I don't oppose
it. So we had 3 weeks ago, we had a lore bomb and document dump of Conquerai from Ombwa, but we had a document dump from Snipe Hunter about player-built cities and how you can go from a camp to a player camp to a player kingdom, which is really cool. And out of that, Cheshire came up with the Blackwell Colonization Initiative. Is that what the name of it is? Which is really cool. It's a place on the forums for people to jump in and start sharing ideas for spaces they might want to colonize, or how they might want to go about colonizing. You want to talk? I want Cheshire to talk more about that, because it was a good idea.
All right. Well, yeah. That design doc was something that I could really, really sink my teeth into. I really like being able to have an impact on the world. That is something that's always really important to me. And what bigger impact than, boom, making my own kingdom, or whatever might come of me and a couple of friends getting together and camping for a couple weeks straight, a couple weeks straight to get the initial thing started, anyways. But the initiative itself, what I threw that together for was not to be like a guild or anything, but to be a place where people on the Blackwell server, at least, could go to try and find other like-minded individuals who are interested in the same kind of future city structure and culture as each other, and try and organize. And when the game actually gets that far into development, they could already be prepared and have a group to go out and try and do it. Storytellers willing. But yeah, that's the primary goal there about it. Primary idea behind it. I myself would like to probably try and go for a free mercantile city, something like that. I'm pretty outspoken against cities like Sky Pass.
What about Sky Pass? You have to explain that for people
who don't know. Yeah. Sky Pass is extremely heavily
dogmatic.
influenced. Yeah, it's dogmatic. It has really strict set of laws there, even to the point where they are like really, really anti-magic for one. um, mages are heavily monitored there. Even if you're just a visitor, you don't even live there, you are under watch. From what I understand from reading the lore drops on it, and it's just
blue
like
city,
it's a blue city,
which means fighting outdoors is going to be monitored.
Yeah.
It's going to be more difficult to do that, and more reprisals for doing that.
Yep. Can't really, like, if something does happen to you, you got to put all your faith that Sky Pass is going to do right by you. I'm not the kind of person who does that.
That's combat related, so there are other ways.
It's not just combat related.
There's other ways to have PvP that you could attack someone without it being combat related. You could do it politically.
You can, if you have that kind of pool already. What if I'm just a visitor to Sky Pass? I got that much pool in such a city. What am I going to do to somebody who, goes up against me?
Yeah, I imagine there's a strong hegemony there. It would be hard to oppose without getting inside it first, and then basically just, surprise and, overthrow everything.
But
my strength could be entirely that I'm better with the sword than that guy. That could be my one advantage. And I'd have to spend, years trying to get in some other position of advantage over them to strike back? It's kind of a little bit too much of a time investment just to get back at somebody for whatever they might have done to me. No, I prefer to just get it over and done with.
Yeah, speaking of blue versus red real quickly, I think one of the things that I'm curious to see, because I think that you would be likely to want to have blue gods.
More or less, yeah.
But also have combat. So it's an interesting thing when we think of PvP combat being more available in red cities. Because it seems to me like you would follow a blue god, but you'd be more likely to have the combat that we tend to associate with the red city. So it'll be curious for me to see how that plays out. I mean, I'm still looking for more details on blue versus red too, but it's going to be interesting.
We do have one combative god that seems to be on the blue side of things, at least. What's his name?
Barak?
Yeah, I keep thinking of Barack Obama every time I see his name.
Barack Obama, yeah!
Yeah,
so,
there's them.
Barak or Barak. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. I'm just going to have to post a guide. but that guy, Barak. Bast, I mean, Bast too. At least the warrior sides, yeah.
Bast
so I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Bast is a warrior goddess herself. She's a goddess of protection, fertility, but she's still a warrior goddess on top of all that.
And Bast is the art of combat, is what she's interested. But I'm not sure if she's an elder god or an outer god. That's the other thing I'm not sure of, is whether or not the beast gods are...
I think they're considered elder gods. They're just a different faction of elder gods from the humanoid ones like Nodens and anime.
Yeah, and Ra.
Yeah,
there's kind of a couple different ones. So like there's like a trinity, I guess if you will, of Brog, Nodens, anime, and then to a lesser extent Dema, because she's related to anime. But then there's also like and then Hoen's related to that slightly, but then there's also, the animal gods, Set, Bast, and the other one, like Morikoth, for instance, is somewhere in there, but it's technically an elder god. Beth Kalor is an elder god, but isn't really related to any of those by any known connection so far.
I think if I'm not mistaken, it was said somewhere that like Nodens and Anime are like the two top elder gods, and then you got everyone else on tiers below them.
Yeah.
So the animal-headed, beast-headed gods probably fall somewhere in that, you know, tier of pantheons there. I mean, you also got Hylathe and Deno, who are like husband and wife, apparently, even though
Right, with
marriage
Sirith.
doesn't exist in Theliston, but then you have two married gods. I don't know. It's, so
Well, I think
yeah,
it's
actually,
mostly just like
almost saying
supposed to be a
something.
masculine feminine duality kind of thing in that case. I mean, and then they're just like I guess lovers per se, but yeah, there's definitely a whole bunch of different systems, and I think that hierarchical classification probably comes from the Brogines or from the Synod, and they're just like, yeah, we got our dudes at the top, right, and everyone else just falls into place alongside. But whether or not that fits the reality is interesting potentially. I don't know if it'll be played on at all.
My understanding is that the was saying that Bastet is an elder, and I'm guessing as beast god. I was asking if the beast gods are great old ones.
Yeah.
Because I think I tend to think of the great old ones as kind of aliens and such, therefore alien looking. But I didn't know whether or not that applied directly to the elder gods, and or to the beast gods, how those two are related. But yeah, there was something that you were saying. We've got the elder gods. Oh, the Synod. Yeah, so the Synod is interested in, one of the things about the elder gods is that they are they're native to Theleston, and then the great old ones are not. So the Synod is interested in gathering together the Theleston gods.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know if they're interested in gathering them together. They just seem to be all about Brog from what I've seen.
No. The Synod is the Synod of Elder Gods, and they were trying to reestablish civility coming out of the Dark Ages and gathering together the survivors.
Yeah, but if you look at the calendar and such, they do have a stronger affinity for Nodens, for Anime, for Brog, for Hoenn than any of the Colossian gods, or Deno and Sirith and Hylath and stuff. So there's at least a bias. I don't want to overstretch, right, without having a lot of information, but there is at least a small bias. Because I mean, like, they're all about gathering knowledge and stuff. So and obviously the restrictions in Skypass somewhat speak to that. But they're suspicious of things beyond their ken, and I imagine especially Lost Gods, and certainly perhaps more frivolous gods would qualify as such. But hey, well, that's something we can talk about obviously over the course of the actual game itself, as well as we learn more and develop camps to support our views and such. But yeah.
Umble was saying in chat that different cultures have different elder gods with some overlap occurring.
Yeah,
but I think that's different pantheons. So the Synod doesn't have all of the elder gods
right
together. But yeah, it's still the elder gods and not any goos or maybe what he's saying is, does the Synod not include the Congarai, but there's some overlap? Maybe that's part of what he's saying too.
Congarai just seems to be its own independent animal from the other nations, from what I've gathered.
Well, Congarai is made up of people from the Synod. I think people from the Synod came to Congarai and appropriated those gods. So there's some overlap there. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how. Like, I don't know for sure if all of the synod gods are blue. That's the other thing I'm trying to figure out. So
I'm kind of wondering what side of the field Set kind of sits on, because some people see him as an evil god, but I had been doing a lot of reading on the Egyptian gods recently, and Set wasn't really a bad guy from what I've gathered. He did one bad thing one time. It's like the rest of the time he was kind of a hero. I mean, he protected the other gods from that creepy snake monster. He had a rivalry with who was that other god? Horus, I think.
Yeah, and I think it was Horus.
Horus completely embarrassed Set. It's kind of sad, but yeah, Set doesn't really seem like such a bad guy. He's guilty of murder in one case.
Yeah, but that's all. Some of that is a lot of that's gonna be subjective in certain ways, because so in terms of bad and good, which really should probably, well, we just have to get into whether we're talking about good with a small g and bad with a small b, or good versus evil. But really, the big indicators are going to be, what do the gods like and what do the gods dislike? And then your decision about whether or not they're good or bad is going to be whether or not you agree with their interests or you disagree with their interests. And the bigger thing with these gods is that they aren't necessarily benign to humanity. The elder gods probably are the closest to being benign to humanity, because they have the most in common with the Leston, and they're going to value the Leston more than a great old one or an outer god. So there's going to be lots of shades that we have to think about. It's going to be very complex whether or not a character perceives a god to be good or bad.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for the most part. It's very subjective, I guess is the word there.
Because that's the major difference with one of the big differences. I mean, throughout the years with MMORPGs, you could choose an alignment of lawful or chaotic or good or evil that would not change based on what you did in a game. And that might choose your god, that might choose some of the abilities that you have or the classes that are available to you. But you can't really shift from lawful to chaotic based on your actions, or from good to evil just based on your act. You can change factions, but it's not really the two factions do the same stuff. They're just on different sides, and they can fight each other versus not being able to fight people in your same faction. But here, it's going to make a difference if you have to think about what the gods like and dislike. And if you do things that the gods dislike, that's going to affect your karma. That could affect the blessings that you get. That could, cause curses to happen. So it's going to be a lot more complex. And we're going to have to think about who we choose to side with. It might not be all that black and white, making those decisions.
Or you just say screw it and go off and do sorts of all sorts of crazy stuff, and then let whatever hammers fall upon your head fall. Now we did get a tad off, or Chesh, if you wanted to say something.
I was just gonna add in, for all we know, Hylathe could be all about bathing in the blood of virgins. I mean, maybe that's her secret to beauty.
Yeah,
get it all up in the pores there.
get a nice coagulant sheen going. Yeah. So we were slightly diverging from topic, just a little bit. So I'm going to use one of the questions that we got to segue back in. So Phelan of Light asks, will there be large areas of the world with no infrastructure at all that cities could be built in from the ground up? And by the sounds of it, yes, there will very likely be large tracts of more or less lawless, if not uninhabited, at least for the time being, land. And as such, depending on other conditions as well, they would probably be good places to set up a city in. Now, if I recall, Chesh, there were a couple of discussions, or a couple of points people were discussing in the initiative thread about kind of where you might be looking for. Do you think you could, or where the initiative might want to look, for instance, or kind of the conflict that might arise from people trying to go to the same spot without being aware of it?
Yeah, part of the initiative is there so we don't try and let's build in the same exact spot. That's another thing you can organize. So like people want to have a desert city. We can avoid having 15 different groups wanting to have this desert merchant bazaar all in Conquer right there. It's like, hey, you guys have all relatively the same idea. Why don't you, group together and pull resources there instead of, filling the desert to the brim with cities, which the STs aren't even going to allow anyways. You might as well group together, better your odds that way rather than, trying to race each other to get picked by the STs as the city group.
Just be a blood frontier, right? We all decide, hey, all right, we're gonna take the West Calagian plain, floodplain, whatever, right? And that's gonna be where we all duke it out for city dominance. Right? Get your hordes, get your masses, get your weapons, get your mages, get your everyone. We're gonna duke it out on the Gorai Plains for some for top dog, right? And so there's like a giant world v world, agreement that people just make, and then there's some huge bloodbath out there, and it causes other things, and the mass death pleases Beth Kalor to such a degree that she manifests as a giant sand tornado of madness that Amba would have fun writing.
Sand Sharknado.
Sand Sharknado, yes, excuse me, Sand Sharknado. Of madness that then threatens the ether because it's drawing so much ether into the plains and stuff. I don't know. Fun things, right? Amba can decide on that. But yeah, I like the idea that people will be fighting over resources or not, right? And that the that threat is at least a small place to sort of plan out, the start of things. I think because that's really potentially like. It creates some drama that people can latch onto, both in character and out of character.
I think it's definitely going to cause some drama because there's going to be large areas with no infrastructure, but the devs don't want large areas to be built up in those large areas to be built up into cities. So the number of cities that we can actually create is going to be fairly small in comparison to those large areas. They still want NPCs to be able to do their thing there. They still want the animals to be able to do their things there, and whatever other supernatural creatures are going in and out of those areas. So I think there will be large areas that we can start to create camps. How many of those camps turn into a city is going to be relatively small. And then the big thing is, do you want the same space, but you might not want the same things. So those questions do come up. Which gods are the ones that we want to? What temple do we want to be built in this area? If you can only start with one. One of the cool things that's coming out of that document, though, is that there are prerequisite things that have to happen before you can move from a camp to a village to a town. You have to accomplish certain goals, certain objectives before you can increase. Some of that is gathering NPCs, what type of NPCs come into the area based on what you're doing and who you're worshiping, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, you we might find that several different types of people want the same spot, and you'll have to maybe duke it out, even with the initiative there.
No matter how much planning or organization goes into the initiative, I fully expect that the inevitable but sudden betrayal will happen. And you like that? My little
What were they doing? Was that the sex minigame?
something like that. Little interpretation there, you know, when a mommy starship and a papa starship get together, they just kind of and things happen.
Could be some papas.
Could be. I mean, they did say they were going to include, same-sex animations for that.
Yeah.
So woohoo lesbomancy.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite concepts.
But yeah, as I was saying, eventually, there's going to be some drama with, if not all the groups involved in the initiative. So, yeah, I mean, it's just some things no amount of preparation will be able to prepare for, which will actually make for some pretty awesome stories, I bet. Yeah.
So one of the things that you had been interested in, Chester, is starting a martial arts school. Are you thinking that you are going to place your school in a city that you create, or do you think you'll start elsewhere first and then have a one dojo there, like have a variety of dojos around? You'll just have one in different cities. How do you think? How are you thinking about working that at the moment?
Well, if I do go with the trainer idea, then yes, I would definitely try and establish my dojo in whatever city it is that I end up being a founder of. I think that would be just a great way to get my school started right there and actually become a centerpiece of that town. Be a great way to attract students too. I mean, the NPCs that would be attracted to that town would be probably the more martially minded. I have no idea where that X-Wing went, by the way.
Chesh, do you want to lead us into questions? Do you want to read off the other questions there for us?
Not
Chesh. I meant Sailkite, sorry.
Refresh your Chesh. Go ahead and find that X-Wing. I'll pull up the questions and then we'll get started.
All right. There's a Y-Wing. Oh, here he is.
You got it? Awesome.
Found it.
Woo! Safe and sound. Let's see. So we actually don't have that many questions at the moment. So there is a small one which I'll just go ahead and recap. So Blood Dragon asks, and he's addressing the devs if there are going to be various languages in Telestin and how teaching and training will work with that. It's looking like there will be different languages, at least in a surface way, right? Like that you'll just get rune gibberish from languages that you don't know, but how the actual teaching interface works with that, I don't think we have a really good idea. Suffice to say that it's going to be a major part of learning languages, or at least living languages will be, speaking them with people. So there's at least that much to look forward to. But anything more is up to Umva and Snipe Hunter, so I will defer any additional speculation to their judgment. We also have a question from.
Wait. So we do know that languages are separate from skills, and
right.
Also the number of languages that you can learn is going to be dependent on perception and intelligence.
Right. Yeah. For sure. So let's see. There will be a trade language, not a common. Yeah. So I mean, it'll be there. There will be languages, but the finer details I think we'll have to wait for.
Yeah, there's I think at least 4 just regular languages, from what I've seen so far. I'm hoping we also get a thieves' cant.
There's a thieves' cant. Let me tell you, there's a thieves' cant. So Culborin, the neighborhood, is actually, the name is itself in real world thieves' cant. A cull in thieves' cant is a thief, but by a better name, a man of the cant, and the warren is effectively a place or a hideout or a location where thieves gather. Now we all know better. Cull Warren is really just a small phonetic alteration to Cool Warren, as per Doniergo's very insightful analysis, and it's really just the place where all the cool cats go. But it is potentially related to Thieves' Cant, and so I imagine that will somewhat be inherited in Revival in some fashion.
Cool. We have 2 more questions.
Do we? Or is it only one?
I don't know. Do we have one from Fallen of Light and one from Mother Rabbit?
I used Fallen of Lights to segue us back into talking.
Okay, alright, cool.
Yeah.
And what about Mother Rabbit?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So, Mother Rabbit asks about altars and rituals. So if she wants to, for instance, give a tribute to Bastet, could she, use, I guess, a whittling skill or a woodworking skill to carve, for instance, a small statuette as a tribute? And so I don't think we've actually had particularly large looks at ornamental crafting yet, I guess. I mean, I don't even know what I would consider that per se in carving, right? But I don't actually know. I'm sure you could imbue it, right? Assuming it's possible to make a thing, then you could imbue, Bastet praise runes into, or slogans or whatever, mantras into it. But I don't actually know what the status is on statuettes, ornaments, things of that nature. Maybe Almba, if he wants to chime in at some point and give us a quick little answer here.
Well, I guess what that has me wondering about, we know that we have our altars, that we can have in our homes, which I think are going to be private, individual
right.
things that we pray at.
It's the temples, of course, for the larger, population.
Well, and ritual circles are larger, I think, too. I think the ritual circles are more group-oriented.
Yeah, I mean, it seems impromptu, though, right? No matter what, we have the chance to have altars and we have the chance to have temples.
We can
right?
purchase ritual circles.
I know, but
and I think we can have. I thought we.
Looks like
altars as well.
Looks like we can build altars or shrines according to Almba here.
But I'm wondering what can we sacrifice? Can we sacrifice things based on our profession? And then would they take those sacrifices? In the Bible we have Cain upset because he tried to sacrifice plants, and God was like, "No, I want meat. Has to be blood." I wonder if we're I'm a cook.
What's done too.
Yeah, I'm a cook. I'm a baker. I will sacrifice my best apples to you, but.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and I wonder also. I mean, I think it's also perhaps a small jump to assume that all gods need sacrifices per se. Now, it's interesting because the etymology of sacrifice basically means sacred work in Latin. But yeah, I mean, like, I think there's a rich history in real life of certainly religious iconography from various groups being implemented in the crafts that people, doing them have. Like Islam, for instance, has a very rich set of visual motifs associated with its architecture, with its calligraphy, and all of those are very heavily influenced by the religious tradition of Islam. And so I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to have some degree of persistence, right? That you could, if you only know how to make, cakes or, loaves of bread, right? That you can make a cake for her, bake a roll for Hoenn, right? That symbolizes passage or good luck for the departing, things like that. So I think there's room. It's just a question of whether Envoy will choose to capitalize it or capitalize on it or not.
Yeah, and what says different gods will appreciate different offerings or types of worship acknowledgement.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. Art to Allah, no representations of people.
No, it's accurate though. Like that actually is a strong tenet of.
I know. We all know. We know. We know. If you're paying any attention to the news, we know. Cool. And that was still our last question. I think we have to wrap up in any case.
Yeah, we're at about that time. So thank you everyone for joining us as always. We love to serve, as it were. And so thank you for sharing your Sunday afternoon with us. We have just a few small things on the horizon to look for. Next week's blog will be discussing planeswalking proper. So we've had a look at some of the precursors to planeswalking, but now we'll finally get a chance to really watch someone go through the process. So that's super. I'm hyped for that. Okay. We have one more question. Just for the record. But there you go.
Very nice.
It's down. But yeah, so there's that blog will most certainly be super juicy. And otherwise, I think there's maybe a small update this week or the next to the client, which we can look forward to.
That's a small update.
There's a small update.
We're going to be able to upgrade, right? Aren't we supposed to be able to upgrade?
Yeah, it would be I believe just the housing upgrade kits, not the modular kits.
Yeah.
But hopefully, yeah, that looks like it might come soon. So you get your hype thrusters on for that.
That would be before the next blog, which means that might be before our next show, and that's kind of a big thing.
Yeah, we'll totally talk about it if it comes out. Absolutely. So,
but
thanks
there's
everyone.
No dates or anything. So,
Right. Obviously, there are no dates. Right. Just take it on faith. It's coming, and exercise the utmost patience that you can afford. So anyway, once again, thank you all for coming out. We totally appreciate the support. We love doing it for you, and we hope to see you next week. So take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.